My kind of life, my kind of life, yes, and I like it. My kind of life, my kind of life, my kind of life, yes, and I like it.
Hello and welcome to the Cliff Clips show on Cliff Richard Radio. I'm happy to be doing this show each week now, because now I can correct a mistake. I wanted so much to share with you a Gloria special, and when the date was there I forgot all about it. So today on the 12th of June I will play the show from the 12th of May 1992. A whole show dedicated to Cliff, with guests who were important in his life and career. There's however just one little part where the TV channel was off the air, and it happened close to the end of Move It.
Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to a very special edition of the programme, because today the show is all about one man. Now he's a singer with perhaps the most familiar face and voice in British show business. The facts of his career speak for themselves. Just think about it. 55 albums and over 100 hit singles. 40 weeks at #1. In fact, only the Beatles and Elvis have been there longer. He has had #1 hits in each of the last 5 decades, and he's the only person to have done that. So let's take a look at him in action.
It's so funny how we don't talk anymore. It's so funny why we don't talk anymore. But I ain't losing sleep, ain't counting sheep. No, 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 no. It's so funny how we don't talk.
Well, I'm delighted to say he is going to be talking to us a lot today, so a very warm welcome for Cliff Richards. I think we've got the odd fan or two in this morning, don't you?
It seems like it, yes. You've got an elite group.
Now, I love watching that piece of film because it brings back great memories of just a fantastic occasion, the event.
Yes, well, I mean, I don't think I'll do that too often. It was very emotional and it was quite a strain. You know, we rehearsed for 6 weeks, and there's a few people I know who are sort of in the legit theatrical side of things, and they're always amazed when I say we rehearsed for 6 weeks and then had an opening and a closing night. And most shows they hope will run at least 6 months. So it was very traumatic. It took me a long time to get over it, too.
What's the buzz like, though, even these days, going out to face, say, 80,000 people?
Oh, fantastic. There's something about a crowd. Even if you watch a football match on television, I find it quite emotional when you see the crowd going, yeah, and all that singing together. I guess it's the fact that too few times in our lives do we get real unity, don't we? You know, there's so much war and disturbance in the world. To actually see a whole group of people actually there for one reason and join together because of it. So when you go on stage, of course, that's like when I go on tour, night after night there'll be 12,000 people who have come together, and you're the catalyst, and you know that, and it's rather a fantastic feeling, something I'll never get used to.
So when you were a lad, when do you remember hearing rock and roll for the first time or being impressed by it?
Well, it would have been Bill Haley, really. Bill Haley and of course Elvis. You see, the first time I ever heard Elvis was the first time I wanted to be something like that. You know, when you think of those wonderful singers like Sinatra and Perry Como and the late Bing Crosby, you're talking about really, really great singers, but they didn't inspire my generation to be like them, actually. I mean, it was really, it's strange, isn't it? But then perhaps it's not so strange. I mean, I just related to the Elvis phenomena and all the people that followed him, all the Jerry Lees and the Everly Brothers, Little Richard. They were the ones that, and when you think about it, how lucky we were, how lucky I am to be my age. Because if I had been younger, I'd have missed all of that, and I wouldn't have missed that for the world.
Well, we've got a few people in the audience, obviously, who've played an important part in your career and your life. And in the audience, we do have the woman who was, in fact, Cliff's English and drama teacher. This was at Cheshire County Secondary School. Her name is Jay Norris. So, Jay, what was he like when he had this bug for rock and roll? What did you think of it all?
I think it took him a lot of time to do that and school, and I think school a bit went.
And did it affect his schoolwork a lot?
Well, we used to have little homework problems. Where you get used to people who say, you know, the dog ate my homework. Harry, as he was then, used to come and say, I haven't done my homework. He told the truth, and it's very difficult to respond to that. So one day I said, I'll tell you something, Harry. When you leave school, take a job smiling at women. You do it very well.
So you were good with the excuses, were you?
Well, I didn't try to make too many excuses, but it's nice to think that someone knew I was being truthful. But the smiling bit, I remember that smiling bit. When I told Mum that afterwards, I'm not quite sure what she said, because I've smiled at her all my life and never got my way with her.
But you made a bet with Cliff, didn't you, Jay, at one point?
Yes, I made a bet when he lost his prefect's badge to...
See Bill Haley?
Yes, to collect tickets for Bill Haley.
Yes.
I said, in 10 years' time, you won't even remember it. And he said, I will. And I said, no, you won't. I bet you a pound of chocolates you won't. And I paid up 10 years later.
Yes,
And then wasn't there a later occasion, though, when you had actually left school and then you went back to ask some advice from Jay about career?
I don't know whether it's unusual or unique, but certainly Jay, it seems, I mean, it doesn't seem funny now, but when you mentioned my name, Harry, I wanted to say, yes, miss. But I don't know whether teachers often become friends with pupils, and it was an unusual thing, because that fifth form that Jay was the teacher of, we seem to have transcended the pupil-teacher thing, and so therefore I've known Jay ever since that time, and we're friends now, and you know, we've invited each other to parties and things like that, so we've spoken a lot about all sorts of things. Yes, I mean, I would still consider Jay a close friend that I could trust if I had a problem.
But you thought, from an advice point of view, Jay, you just thought he never should go into the business at all?
Well, he asked
did say
me,
that.
should I give up my job in an office and go into rock and roll, into singing? And I said, well, I think it's a rat race, and I don't think you're a rat. I think I should just keep it as a little hobby and keep a proper job in the business. I gave up careers advice after that.
And I turned out to be a rat.
Now, one of the people who very early on recognised Cliff's talent was John Foster, and he became Cliff's very first manager. So, John, how did the name then come about? Because presumably that was all in and around your time, wasn't it?
Well, we were then called the Drifters, and we actually got our first international booking in the Two Eyes to go to Nottingham, which was big time. And a guy called Harry Greatorex booked us in to go to Ripley. And he said, I don't want just to be the Drifters, I want the lead singer to have a name. So we went from the Two Eyes to a pub called the Swiss in Old Compton Street in Soho, and came up with some names. And I came up with Cliff Richards. And
with an S?
With an S.
Oh.
And Sammy said, well, why don't we take the S off the end, so whenever everybody says it's Cliff Richards, we can say, no, it's Cliff Richard, and that will make it stick. And I think it
And what did Harry Webb think about that?
I loved it. I mean, I loved it, because I can remember the names that came up. I don't know if you remember, John, Russ Clifford was one of the final ones.
That's it.
And I said, oh, I don't like that. And then someone turned it to Cliff Russard, and then John came up with Cliff Richards. And also Sammy said, when we took the S off, he said, not only will we be able to correct people when they say it wrong, but also it's a little tribute to Little Richard. You know, we were all real rock and roll fans, and I felt happy about it, because Cliff Richard to me sounded better than Harry Webb. I mean, there was that song about That's the Trouble with Harry, and people used to call me Harry Boy, and it just didn't sound
fit, really,
no,
did
it just
it?
didn't sound kind of cool and rock and roll. Nowadays, I'm not sure I would have changed my name. I don't think it matters as much now. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you can get away with, well, I won't say anything, but lots of names that are really weird and wonderful.
At that stage, in your own mind, did you know that you were going to be successful? Were you like single-minded on it?
Oh, if I'm honest, I don't think I really thought of it. I just wanted it so badly. When I look back, I think to myself, it was inevitable I would get somewhere because I needed it so much. But it's easy to say that after the event. I don't know that I really thought that it was really going to happen. When Move It happened, it was just an amazing thrill, and we lived from record to record, from tour to tour. And it's only as the years go by that you suddenly think, I really have made it. And it wasn't until my 40th birthday that I remember saying to my mum, I really feel I'm famous now, because even if people don't like me in this country, and loads of people don't like what I do, they at least know who I am. And so it took all that time, you see. So I don't really think that at those early days I could actually sit down and say, I knew I was going to make it. We all just hoped like mad.
Well, now, our next guest almost single-handedly launched a generation of British rock and rollers. As producer of the television show 6-5 Special and Oh Boy, he brought stars like Marty Wilde, Adam Faith and Tommy Steele to the screens. Then in September 1958, he was to have a huge impact on Cliff's career. So I know you're going to welcome Jack Good.
Great to see you.
You too.
You're right. Yeah,
So Jack, what did you make of Cliff then at his very first audition?
well, I was expecting that something would be very wrong because I'd heard this record and I thought, I can't believe this. We made lousy records in Britain. We tried to do rock and roll. We couldn't do it. And there was one good rock and roll singer that I knew of, Marty Wilde. And I needed more for my show. And I heard this record. He said, this guy's British. I said, no, he isn't. He's not British. He said, he's British. So I took this record. It was a white label, back to the flat. And in the same block was Marty. I rushed over to Marty. I said, play that. What do you think? He said, very good, very good. These Americans, you know, we can't do it. You know. I said, he's British. Marty said, he's not. I said, he's British? He said, blimey, who is he? I said, I don't know, but I'm auditioning him tomorrow. So I thought, well, this guy's going to be 3 foot high or have 2 heads or 4 ears. Something's got to be wrong. You know, it can't be this. I can't be this lucky. So when I went and saw him at the audition, I thought, blimey, he looks as good as he sounds. I couldn't believe it. He had this angelic face, you know. Oh. But when he opened his mouth to sing Breathless, he did Breathless and Lordy, Lordy, Miss Claudia,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Right. Opened the mouth and there were these choppers. That was the first thing. That was the first thing I noticed. He had these canine teeth here. Doesn't have them now.
Well, I've still got both of them there, but
Big
one of them...
mistake.
No.
You should have asked me. Because they could draw blood. He had this angelic face. But when he opened his mouth, you could see, he's going to get you.
Well, we'll talk in a moment about the other changes that you were to make, Jack, in the whole image. But you did mention the angelic face. And I want to have a look at a piece of film, and I absolutely love this. And I want to know who these boys are in the background. So have a look at this. I love that.
Very
I love
good, very good. That's my favourite number.
So when you look back at a piece of film like that, how do you feel?
Oh, I don't mind. I think it looks as good as anything I've seen today. I mean, because remember,
good, it's better.
It's better, you're right, you're right. The thing about it is rock and roll is a kind of poser sport. And those of us who are good at posing can actually do that at any given time. And there's a lot of modern people who pose really, really well. And Jack was the first one that got me into that, because I used to play guitar. Before I did the audition, and probably during the audition, I'd played guitar.
He did.
And therefore, in a way, it's limiting. People that play guitars can't do what the rest of us can. And Jack sort of was the one that introduced me into getting rid of the guitar, cutting sideburns, and using eyes and smiling when it's necessary, but usually not.
But presumably, you see, Jack, you had to tell all of them, really, how to perform for television.
Yeah, but Cliff was the guy that I really worked on because I could see that he was going to drive them crazy if we got it right. So I was always saying, shoulder forward, head down, eyes up, get the hand up here, you know, planning every shot. Because I was into Stanislavski, The Method, Anthony Hartle, you know, it was drama for me. But you know, I hated pop music, but drama.
But presumably it was instant stardom. I mean, he came to you with no experience, but
absolutely
the impact must have been enormous.
It was sensational. He remembers his first performance as being a failure, or at least that the audience didn't go crazy. I don't remember it like that.
I do.
But he sang Move It and they hadn't heard the record and that sort of thing. Next time he was on the show, the thing had gone up into the charts into, I think it was already 20 or something like that. And they went berserk. I knew they would.
I didn't.
So when Cliff in the end decided to leave, oh boy, I mean,
I hated it.
Were you upset at that, yeah?
Yeah, I thought, what's he doing? Doesn't he realize who I am? I'm the greatest director in the world. This is the greatest show in the world. And he's moving off. Just because he's only earning £18 a week, you know, didn't make sense.
So why did you move?
I never felt that I left Oh Boy. It's just that my career had expanded so much, far beyond anything I could have ever dreamt of. and you just get drawn away. And even today, I don't do a great deal of television. Television takes a lot of time. It's high exposure, and I think with TV you have to be really careful. If I was ever going to do a show and could wind the clock back, it's only really Oh Boy that I'd be happy flinging myself into again if you were at the helm.
Right, we'll sign on. I've got the paper here.
Now, the story of Jack Good and Oh Boy is told in a new musical called Good Rockin' Tonight. You just heard them mention that. It's on, by the way, at the Playhouse Theatre in London. And playing the part of Cliff in the show is an actor who was himself discovered by Jack Good, and he's Tim Whitnell. So, Tim, were you a fan of Cliff's anyway before you went into the show?
Careful.
Yeah, well, I was, but I had the prerequisites, which was that I had the canine choppers, and also I like smiling at women. But yeah, I was a real Cliff Richard fan. But I discovered him quite late on, and the stuff that I knew Cliff to sing was very much musicians' music, which I really enjoyed him for. And I rediscovered the early stuff, which is even better, I think.
So is he difficult to do as such? Does it take a long time working on him?
He's difficult to do if the first 3 rows are wearing Cliff from a distance to a T-shirt. Yeah. And someone said you can always tell that Cliff's fans are in because their T-shirts are brand new. and it's only worse if the man himself is sitting in the audience. So,
and that's happened on a couple of occasions, actually,
yeah, it
hasn't
is. And I saw him a couple of weeks ago with his red bow tie on, and he always seems to sit higher than everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, you know why? Because I got a bad back and I never slouch.
Really? Yeah. But I could see you like head and shoulders above everybody else. And someone said, Cliff's in, and I said, no.
So you had to work on the lip curl, did you?
The lip curl comes, yeah, it's pretty hard.
Too much.
I have to say that Jack told me that I looked like I was someone who was appealing to the fan club of the Mike and Bernie Winter show, but he hadn't seen the show for a while, but you do have to do a bit of that to get the voice. Right. Sorry, Cliff.
And was there a bit of deja vu as you were sitting in the audience? It was weird watching Tim doing it.
Particularly when Tim utters one line that I remember saying to Jack, because there's very little that you actually remember about the past, not in such detail, but when he told me to get rid of the guitar and the sideburns, the Jack Good character actually tells Tim to do that on stage, and Tim said, yeah, but what am I going to do with my hands? And that gave me a real shiver because it was one of my first fears. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't realize that Jack had the plans to direct and keep my arms at my side and things like that, but it was a terrifying moment for me, and I did get a real shiver that first night.
Yeah.
Second night, I just nudged my sisters. I said, listen to what's coming up now.
Yeah. It's the rock and roll moment. That's what it is. Yeah.
Well, Tim, I think the moment has come actually for you,
no.
I'm afraid.
I think I've done something awful in a previous life.
Yes, I just want to hear a little bit, anyway, of Move It, as Tim does it in the show.
Okay. Don't tell me off the guitar intro, really. Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and groove it. Shake it, baby, shake it, honey, please don't lose it. This rhythm that gets into your heart and soul. Let me tell you, baby, it's called rock and roll.
I didn't see too much of a lip curl there at all, did you?
No, well, the lip curl, of course, I don't do the lip curl as well as I used to. I've looked at photographs now. There's lots changed in my face. And one of the things I think that I've lost, which I'm loath to say, is that I did have not only the choppers, but the lips were fuller. I had fuller lips, so it was much easier to sort of actually be a bit like that.
Yeah.
So what do you think of Tim's version, then? Is it accurate or not?
It's pretty accurate. The intro, which I will correct in a moment.
He's always saying this to us.
It's always amazing, but I don't know what it is, but musicians find it really impossible to play that intro as it is. It's because it has apparently a 2/4 bar in the middle of it. Now, me not being a musician, I don't know what a 2/4 bar is. So when I play it, I just go ba-down, down, da-down, da-down, down, down, ga-da-da-down. Whereas you're tempted, as you did then, to go...
I don't play it in the show, though. That's unfair.
No, I know you don't.
I'm only doing it this morning.
On the first night, I remember seeing a guitarist saying, it was terrific, but you can't play the intro like this.
I've got to say, the curtain came down, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, bang, huge reaction. Cliff came up on stage and sung with us, which was terrific. And he walked straight up to the guitar player and said, give me that guitar.
Tim, I hate to tell you, but he's about to do that right now.
No.
Yes. The moment has come, I think, for you to do it, Cliff.
Okay, thanks.
So here's Cliff, live in the studio with a song which launched his career almost 34 years ago. Move It.
rock and roll. Say it's gonna die for honey, please let's face it. Just don't know what's going to replace it. Well, ballads and calypso have nothing on real country music that just drives along. Hey, honey, move it. Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and I'll move it. Well, shake, baby, shake, but honey, please don't lose it. This rhythm that gets into your heart and soul. Well, let me tell you, people, it's called rock and roll. You say it's gonna die, but honey, please let's face it.
This guy, he looks like Buddy Holly,
That's right.
plays like James Burton, and he said the only trouble is he's got a mate. Well, not quite like that, but words to that effect. So when they came up, it wasn't really an audition, it was just a matter of getting together and playing with other musicians, because I had only worked with very amateur musicians.
Real
friends of mine.
musicians.
Did you feel very secondary?
Not
Cliff?
at all, no, no. We always knew we were superior.
Well, I don't think they would have
No.
felt secondary, because ours was an act that was very much built together. You know, we would fling each other down on the floor, and you know, I remember Bruce sort of getting down on his knees like that, and then he'd say, "Hold the guitar while I get up," you know, and it was very
That's
much
true,
an
isn't it?
act. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so we were, and also we were I think we were quite clever, and in a way slightly ahead of our time, because although you say I helped get the contract, it was obvious they were good enough to do anything that they wanted to, and what we found was that as their fame grew, our fame was untouchable. We would do tours because the girls might come and see me, and all the guys came to see the band.
Yeah.
You know, wanted to wear glasses like Hank and get the same
Weight as me.
weight as Bruce. but it was a terrific twosome. We didn't fail, and even when the Beatles came on the scene and everyone was really, everything was threatened at the time. When you look back on it now, we still played sellout tours, we still had top 10 hits, and I guess it was our combined success. Maybe if either of us had been totally separated, we may not have succeeded as well, I don't know.
Now, my next guest first met Cliff in a television studio back in 1967, although I should point out at this stage that they hardly saw eye to eye on that occasion. Cliff was arguing the case for God on the religious program Looking for an Answer, and facing him was a self-confessed atheist, the then lead singer with Manfred Mann, now a very successful actor in musicals and on television. So I know you'll welcome Paul Jones. So, Paul, what do you remember of that particular occasion?
I remember thinking how incredibly clever I was.
And I remember thinking, how incredible clever he is.
You're so much.
Why did you come out on top on that occasion?
Well, yes, I must say that, can I name the interlocutor?
Yes.
Or interviewer, whatever you call him? His name is Robert Key, and he's a very brilliant man, but he was supposed to be impartial, and he wasn't.
He wasn't, no.
He wasn't in the least impartial. Basically, it was Robert and Paul against Cliff. And it was unfair in another way, too, which was that Cliff was asked not really to apologise for anything that he believed, but you were actually
Apologising for everybody
there
else.
for Billy Graham,
Billy
weren't
Graham,
you?
yeah.
You really, I sort of had the impression that if they could have got Billy Graham there, they would have had him.
Yeah, not have me.
Well, I know about that. No, but so in other words, there was Cliff sort of sticking up for Billy Graham, not himself, you know, and there were two people against him instead of one against him and one impartial.
It
But
was tough. I remember not liking you at all.
But a stroke of irony, though, when you think that Paul, in I don't know how many years ago exactly, but you became converted to Christianity anyway.
Yes, indeed, 1984, I suppose. I call it 1984. It was a sort of slightly gradual process, as I believe it always is. But,
He's really nice now. He's a really nice guy.
You like him now, do you?
Yeah, he's really nice.
So because both of you have had experience of, say, you know, having to be a self-confessed Christian and having to deal with the fans and having to defend yourselves, at the time of your conversion, were you worried about, say, how the fans or how the industry would react?
Well, I wasn't worried, but of course I had some mature Christian friends at the time, and when I had received this letter from Billy Graham, in fact, the just mentioned, aforementioned, asking me to appear on his platform, I had to make up my mind then, was I going to go public with this? And these Christian friends of mine, quite rightly, placed it in front of me and said, look, you've got a choice. It could damage your career, it may not. You know, you could be a laughing stock, you may not be. And so I just had to make the choice myself, but they kind of laid it on the line that it's possible I could have lost fans, but it didn't happen that way, and I'm really thrilled.
I'm just wondering, you see, if Bruce felt left out on certain occasions, because Hank obviously was very committed,
Yes.
Cliff was committed, and there you were.
I mean, obviously, Cliff and Hank and Licorice Locking in the early days would have meetings, Bible meetings after the shows, whereas I'd go to an Indian restaurant.
But sufficient to say also, of course, that Bruce has, you know, found certain songs for you during your career, like Miss Unites. I remember that particular one you found.
I believe it's just won some...
Yes, no,
I haven't been well, you know. I've missed it.
it tends to always be the song that people who have followed my career tend to choose it as their favourite song of mine. Now, I know Jack Good wouldn't like Miss Unites, because Jack, that one didn't have any drums on it at all. But the fans have always liked that, and it was, yes, they voted it the #1
Did they?
of my recordings again. Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful... Can you remember the first time I played it to you?
Yes.
It's such a wonderful lyric. You know,
We both stood there.
we
We just get all the hairs standing up on our arms.
the hairs just stood up on our arms when we heard it.
Great
Yep.
song. Now, amongst our audience today, which I should say is packed with Cliff's fans, we have a mother and daughter, that's Ray and Colette Williams. Now, they claim to have one of the biggest collections of Cliff memorabilia in the entire world. So how big is it altogether? Let's just take that for a start.
Very big. I've got all sorts of things at home. In fact, just about, if not more, fills my living room when I've got it all out.
Really?
Yes.
That's extraordinary. How many times did you go and see him in time in the musical?
68 times in the musical time.
No wonder it ran for so long.
Well, listen, I have a box of goodies here that actually are from your collection. To be honest with you, I nearly wore this jacket myself on the programme today. I thought it was a very nice colour. Where'd you get this?
Actually, Cliff donated it to me himself.
Oh, did you? Do you remember this?
I do
remember
indeed.
where you wore it in particular?
No, but I used to wear it on stage with a pair of white trousers.
That's right.
Yeah, and they were bell-bottoms, so it's way back, isn't it?
And a pair of glasses. I mean, nice glasses, but pretty
Did you
ordinary.
catch those?
I did, Cliff.
In Birmingham?
actual
We
fact,
used to do a rock and roll medley, which Jack would have loved. And we all wore dark glasses and things. At the very end, we used to sling these glasses out. Yeah, so you actually caught it.
What, did you have to leap for these?
Yes, she was, because she's very tiny, she always used to get to the front. But on this occasion, we were about 8 rows back, and at the end, everybody stands up. And of course, she couldn't see, so she jumps up on a seat, and suddenly these glasses come flying over, so she jumps over to catch them, nearly goes into the chap in the next row, and he says, "What are you doing on Saturday? I'm short of a tackler."
Also, right along the back row, we have the Hillier family. So we've got Anne, and we've got Len, and their son Colin, and daughter Sarah. So, Anne, you've got a rather interesting contraption, I gather, on your knee.
Yes, yeah. It's part of your boiler, Cliff.
Do you know, we've had a real cold winter.
Now, it's not the normal thing that a fan would collect, so how did you get it?
One of my colleagues went down to repair your boiler. The next day, I get confronted in the office with who would like part of Cliff's boiler, because they're always gearing me up at work.
And did you display this on your mantelpiece or somewhere?
Yes, it was brought home to me, and it went on the mantelpiece. It stayed there, I think, must have been a good 6 months. And then we took the mantelpiece down.
Pride of place.
Yes, yeah, and then it moved from the front room into the hallway on the whatnot shelf.
You should try it on the boiler.
It doesn't work, it's broken. It's now in the shed.
Well, now, we have a little bit of Cliff memorabilia in the studio, because I think you're clutching onto it at the moment. And Cliff's been very kind. I know that all of you just love all the bits and pieces that you've got. But this is for our general audience. So...
I wore this at Nebworth.
Oh, great.
I dug out an old pink suit of mine, and I thought, I'll wear that with a pink tie. And so...
We're going to have general competition. This is for everybody at home.
Bruce will know this one. I've only ever had one song that I've released that came in at #1 in the charts. First week in at #1 in the charts. The title of that song would be the correct answer.
So that's the question?
There you go.
You got the shirt. And maybe you put your answer on a postcard, and at the very end of the programme, we'll give you the address as to where you can write to. And obviously we'll be announcing the result on the very last programme of the series. Now we move on because my next two guests have both played a part in Cliff's career. One is the founder of the Stock-Aitken-Waterman Partnership and is responsible, of course, for giving the world Jason Donovan and Kylie Minogue. And the other is a writer and musician who recently presented the Radio 2 biography of Cliff called Wired for Sound. So I know you'll welcome Pete Waterman and Mike Reid. Now, Pete, you once said that you would never work with anybody over 24, so what happened in Cliff's case?
No, what I said was we don't like working with people over 24, and the basic reason is it's very difficult for us to work with people that we admire so greatly. I mean, Cliff was very difficult to work with. Everybody we've ever written songs for, we get to know quite well, because we try and write songs that they would actually write themselves. And we were trying to think of all these titles we could get Cliff to sing, you know. What would he say to a girl? We actually wrote about 8 songs. And in the end, I got so angry, I said, look, for God's sake, you can't go on like this. You know, just write a song. You know, and he said, well, come up with a title that you think Cliff would say. I said, well, he just wouldn't have the heart not to sing what we were going to say. And they said, that'll do.
That's it, that's the title. Now, did Cliff actually, in the end, tie in with the philosophy, though? I mean, when you actually wrote the song and everything?
I remember when we first, you know, were asked by Cliff, and I spoke to David, and I said, he wouldn't want to possibly work with us, you know, because, like, if he works with us, he's going to be hated. You know, the worst thing that could happen to him, you know, he's going to get hated for working with us. He's going to get a lot of criticism, even in his own record company. I remember meeting Cliff just before the Wembley show, and he said, and we'd had this discussion, and he said, I have to tell you, you're so right. He said, I spend more time defending you than I do my belief in God.
Yes. I want to talk to Mike about something different, though, because apart from having worked professionally with Cliff in the past, you are the sportsman on the tennis court and off skiing. So is he as much of a demon during tennis?
Don't sound sportsman, you'll laugh.
Well, I was having a silent chat.
Is he competitive on court?
Yeah, he's very competitive. He wants to win. You can see it in his face. He's determined to win. On occasions, I thought, he's going to swear now. He's got to. He's got to now. But he doesn't.
And how did he make out on the piste then when he's taken up skiing of late?
The artiste of the piste, he was pretty good. He was very keen. We went up in a blizzard, wasn't it, to about 6,000 feet.
He called himself the Wizard of the Blizzard. It was really the worst day ever.
It was so cold, as you got further and further up. It was horizontal. And it was like this, and you could hardly move.
And this was in the chairlift. No, it's true. It was the chairlift going up into the teeth of this blizzard. I mean, when we actually started coming down, it was far more pleasant. You still couldn't see, but the wind was behind you.
It was quite horrendous. You couldn't see a thing. And Cliff said, he said, it hurts my face when I smile. I said, what are you smiling for? It's 6,000 feet up in the blizzard. We're just about to die, you know, and it's, well, I'm in showbiz.
I tell you what, knowing
just in case someone was looking, I think.
Knowing what all that après ski is like, I mean, does it ever happen when you're away on a holiday like that and trying to relax, that people actually do come along and say, oh, go on, you know, get up, give us a song?
No, Cliff asked them if he could, and everybody said no.
And I also heard down the grapevine that you did a karaoke one night.
Not there.
Couldn't keep not there.
Not in Austria. No, we did a karaoke in a local Chinese.
I've got to confess, they asked me and I told them that. all these people sitting there having their Chinese food, and they couldn't believe Mistletoe wine came up, and they thought, it looks a bit like him, doesn't it? And he started singing Mistletoe wine to karaoke.
But you liked that Chinese wine, did you?
Yeah, very much.
Can't believe you did that.
I can't really know. When I think back now, I think, what a fool. There's probably an album, a bootlegged album out somewhere.
No, there's a restaurant full of people walking around saying, sure, I saw Cliff.
Well, listen, we're almost out of time, but I just want to come back to Jack Good, because obviously you were so instrumental at the beginning of Cliff's career. Now, what do you think has been the secret of this phenomenal success?
Well, part of it is what Mike said, that the guy likes to win and is going to be competitive. And if he doesn't get to #1, he wishes to hell he had, you know. And I think that's necessary for a champion. The other thing is self-discipline. I'm amazed by his discipline. And finally, I think that He listens to advice, doesn't always take it, but he listens to advice, and he decides what he's going to do on the basis of that. And he doesn't analyze his performance too much.
Is that right, Cliff, about having to be number one, having to win?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't make records. I don't know of anybody that makes a record that they don't think could be number one. Every time you release a record, you think it's better than everybody else's, and that's still true for me. If I don't make number one, I usually look ahead. The last time this happened to me was last Christmas. I only made number 10 in the charts, and there were only 2 above me that I thought should have been there above me. I should have been at least number 3. So that's still...
I'm glad it wasn't me this Christmas.
Actually, Peter, you're a very good one to ask about staying power, because you've worked with so many young people by the stage. What is it then about Cliff and this, say, staying power?
Jack Good just actually summed it up. He listens to people, he picks the right people, but he always plays his own hunch at the end of the day. He entertains people. And, you know, I only wish that some of my young artists would understand that all they're doing is supposed to be entertaining people, not themselves. And Cliff entertains people.
Mike, do you think there are any young people around today who will have the longevity of Cliff?
If they're sensible to do what Cliff does and pick good songs, Cliff picks the best songs that are around and sings them. Most artists don't do that, and I don't know why they don't, because they'd last a lot longer if they did. And why he's got a lucky face. That's why he's stayed around for so long. But I think the song selection is part, a really important part of it.
And the final thing I just want to ask Cliff is, what do you really want for yourself? I mean, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, it's just how you see your career from here on in.
Well, I've liked what's happened to it, obviously. I mean, and again, it's easy to say it from a vantage point that's quite high up. But I've actually enjoyed doing what I've done, and I've been asked, particularly when I reached that 30th anniversary concert, you know, what is there left to do? And the answer is really simple. You have to do everything all over again and improve it. Because art, however you see that, you know, art is everything that we do as rock and roll singers, as painters, writers, dramatists, and it doesn't matter what you are. You never actually get it as good as you know you can. And all you can hope to do is keep improving. So if I do happen to have another 10, 15 years ahead of me, I've just got to do everything again and just get it better every time.
And keep on taking the pills, obviously.
And keep taking the tablets.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, I'd like to thank Cliff very much indeed. We really thoroughly enjoyed it. And all our special guests have come into the studio to contribute to the programme. Tomorrow we'll be finding out what makes a man sexy. Maybe I should ask you to stay on for that.
I'll stay on for it.
Well, there we are. But that's where we've got to leave today's programme. But we do have another number from Cliff coming up, you'll be glad to hear. It's his 1977 hit, Given the Rock and Roll Treatment Naturally Enough, and it's called My Kind of Life. So we'll see you tomorrow.
I wouldn't spend it anywhere other than sitting down somewhere playing away my day. Yeah, yeah. Well, we made it to the city, just me and my guitar. That was where I found a freaky little ball, and I sat there on the stage and I played. Yeah, yeah. Well, came a guy who said it wasn't plastic. He wanted me to sign away my life or something drastic. All I wanted to do was play, yeah. That's been my kind of life, yes, and I like it. That's been my kind of life, yes, and I like it. Ooh, it's been my kind of life, yeah. And I wouldn't spend it anywhere other than sitting down somewhere playing away my day, just playing. When the fame and fortune have left them I didn't try to turn the people on to play. Yeah, yeah. Well, you can keep all the money and the places that go with it, 'cause all I want is freedom and no cash will ever get it. All I wanna do is play, yeah. 'Cause that's been my kind of life, yes, and I like it. That's been my kind of life, yes, and I like it. Ooh, that's been my kind of life, yeah. And I wouldn't spend it anywhere other than sitting down somewhere, playing away my days. Playing. My kind of life, yeah. My kind of life, yeah. Oh, my kind of life, yeah. Ooh, my kind of life, yeah.
I just loved watching this show. Gloria and Cliff have been good friends through the years. So when Gloria celebrated her 70 years in showbiz, Cliff sent her a message on Loose Women. And they showed also some footage of them together.
You've made so many friends along the way, and one of your very, very best friends, as friend of this show too, is Sir Cliff. And he couldn't be here today, but he did send a message.
Did he indeed? Oh, lovely.
Hi, Glo. I cannot believe that you are celebrating 70 years in show business. Someone who's been in the show business more than I have, longer than I have. Anyway, congratulations, darling. May there be at least 70 more years to come. We're looking forward to it. God bless.
There's actually...
Have you learned anything about about yourself, about your own inner strength?
That first day on my knees weeping in my kitchen, that was probably the depths of it all. And then, of course, I got a phone call, and it was you. You simply said, don't say a word, do not interrupt me. And I was very grateful for that.
We're pretty fantastic.
Does this sound familiar?
And I remember I was in the west of our country, in the UK, in a place called Cornwall. And we were on a camping holiday or something with a whole group of us. And I said, oh, today I'm just not going to own up. I'm not going to admit to being me. So we went out, and I remember we came out of an ice cream shop because it was very embarrassing. You know, my tongue was about out here, just about to lick some ice cream, when a little old lady went, "You're Cliff Richard." And I said, "No." She said, "Oh, yes, you are." I said, "Oh, no, I'm not." She said, "You are." I said, "I'm not." She said, "You are." I said, "I'm not." She said, "You are. I've seen you on the telly." I said, "I'm not." And at this point, you see, every time she said, "Oh, yes, you are," my lot were going, "Oh, no, he's not." It was like some street pantomime. Anyway, she continued and very insistently said I was, and I said very insistently I wasn't. She said, "You are." I said, "I'm not." She said, "You are." I said, "I'm not." She said, "You are." Well, I have to tell you that I did give in and said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "You're not, are you?"
Cliff told this joke already in 1978 at his gospel tour in Australia. Now we get to some music. I will play some more tracks from the established 1958 album. They will be in the playlist. First The Shadows with Here I Go Again, Poem and Voyage to the Bottom of the Bath. And then Cliff with The Shadows with What's Behind the Eyes of Mary and The Dreams I Dream. That's a good song to end the show with. I wish you all lovely dreams tonight. Thank you for listening and for your company. And I hope to see you again next week on Cliff Richard Radio. Where else? Stay safe. Bye.
My kind of life, yes, and I like it. My kind of life.